And so oftentimes the way I feel things, the way I perceive things with my senses is wholly incorrect.
True, and I'll add on to that since I don't think we've mentioned yet, Adam is also a student of classical tantra, like myself. Um, I think one of the things that's brought up, though, for me with that is in tantric philosophy, there's three levels of the mind: the manas, piti, and chitta. And so, on one level, yes, we have that. But then when we're talking about deeper levels of mind, deeper levels of knowing, deeper levels of feeling, that is connected to more of a soul level, a much more karmic level. Those things we'd say are internal and indelible within us, right? Like, not everything is necessarily confirmed by the scope of the metaphor of, well, that's your limited perspective at this moment. And yeah, I'm a big believer that, emotions can be wonderful guidelines of what's going on, but they're also constantly in flux and they're constantly changing. And so, can we root ourselves into something deeper than just the momentary, transitory experience of the mind?
Mm-hmm.
But to your discussion on power, if I am genuinely feeling oppressed, or like my needs are not getting met by my partner, and that is a feeling that is reoccurring and deep within me, do I have the integrity to both speak that need out loud, and then also the willingness to do what I need to do to take care of myself?
Mm-hmm. Those are some tough questions that bring up quite a bit around safety and also around how I'm perceiving some of those challenges. I think about my own partner and how many times I've been the one who's felt aggrieved, and I go into a discussion about it, and that can my perception of the way things were, that limited understanding, um, can really get blown up and challenged, and as I begin to see things from those different perspectives.
So, question for you. So, something that I'm really curious about, since a lot of your work is, we've kind of been talking about these ideas of integrity and advocating for yourself and power dynamics in a kind of global sense, community sense. But I know a lot of your work also happens on a one-on-one sort of relationship with someone and their partner or partners. So how does that work in relationship? Because the thing that comes up for me that I wonder about is, at the end of the day, aren't you only responsible for yourself? What you do, how you act, how you feel. And yes, of course, the feelings and concerns of your partner are to be considered, but you can't live their life. You can't make choices for them. We cannot control them, nor would we want to try. So if your partner is really struggling with integrity and struggling with pretty privilege, saying, I'm having a really hard time speaking for what I want because I feel intimidated by your beauty, at the end of the day, isn't it a little bit like, well, I want to give you space to work on that, but that's something you need to work on. I'm not going to diminish myself or change myself to make you more comfortable.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for naming this. In all of my groups and all of my one-on-one work, the first rule, the first agreement I have is responsibility, and how you have to it's your responsibility to take care of your desires, your pleasure, your pain, your arousal, your frustrations, and it's my responsibility to take care of my body. And what I find is that when we can both take responsibility for ourselves, that gives us the clearest path to pleasure, to being in integrity with one another. And that's really hard, because we are trained and programmed to take responsibility for other people all the time. And if the thing I always name with folks is that if for any moment I begin to take responsibility for your body, it's going to make it hard, if not impossible, to notice what I want, to notice my limits, because that energy is going to be externally focused on you. And that for me to live a life where I show up fully, for me to live a life where I show up fully, I have to be 100% aware, consistently aware of what's happening in my body, what I want, what I don't want, what I'm going to ask for. And that's really hard if I'm trying to take care of you, if I'm taking responsibility for you. And again, that's what we've been trained to do. That's the easier way, because if I'm taking responsibility for you, I don't have to take responsibility for myself.
Mm.
I don't have to take responsibility for the pain. I don't have to take responsibility for the massive fear that comes up when I think about asking for what I want. Oh, hi.
Hello.
So yes, we all have to take responsibility for ourselves. I think that is the number one most important piece of this work. And part of that is taking responsibility for how my body shows up in a community with other people. And I think that that is part of it, the objective understanding of that systemic, historical, ancestral power that I might hold.
My husband has often pointed out that I personally, me, Kay, have cognitive differences from large swaths of the rest of the planet. Um, and he even
You
argues,
gotta love that.
yeah, he's like, I would not be surprised if we find out you're on the autism spectrum. And I'm like, could be entirely possible. But one of those areas that he points out that for me that, and I love hearing you talk about this because um, I don't seem to function like a lot of other people is if I identify a need for myself or a want or desire, I will ask for it without hesitation, whether that's sexual or just life stuff or relationship stuff. Be like, hey, you know what would be really good for me is I would really like more touch. I would like to be hugged more. Or, it doesn't feel good when this happens. And he's like, do you realize how most people aren't able to do that? Most people have so much shame around asking for their needs or even knowing that they have needs and vocalizing them. And he's like, and you have just like, you are unaware that it's like you missed that part of societal programming that you're supposed to be ashamed of what you want and not ask for it, and try to get people to give it to you in circuitous ways without actually naming it, and and I'm like, yeah. He's like, you missed that download. You missed that societal programming thing that everybody else seemed to get except you. So it's personally a very hard thing for me in relationships, and it even comes up with my husband, where I'm like, well, why are you frustrated right now? Just tell me what you want, and I'll do it. And be like, I don't know what I want. I'm processing that right now, and it's not always easy for me to express my feelings. And I have a bit of a cognitive dissonance where I'm just like, I don't understand that. Why? And that's even come up in friendships for me where I'm like, well, just talk about it. Let's just talk about what's going on. And they're like, I can't do that. I'm not returning your phone call. And it's like, I don't get why it's so hard. So I realize that this is part of my alien brain that just doesn't fit with this. So it's interesting to hear you talk about it and hear how important this work is, because it's something that I don't fully grasp in the way I think a lot of people do, or I don't experience it in a similar way, it seems.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's important to name that we're all navigating it at different levels, different speeds. The way I wake up tomorrow is going to be different than the way I wake up today. I don't always know what I want. And that's okay. My partner doesn't always know what he wants, and that's okay. But and this gets to one of the larger pieces of the work that to me, my work and what I tried to guide clients through, this is not about finding some final destination of fulfillment or joy or having the most amazing orgasm of your life. I mean, hopefully those things happen, but it's really about teaching skills to navigate the path, because that path never ends. It's always deepening. There's always going to be new obstacles and challenges. I'm gonna feel different on Monday than I do on Wednesday, and if we know how to navigate that, if we know what we need to feel safe enough in each of those moments, in each of those spaces, it makes it so much easier, in my experience, so much easier to show up for myself, to show up in community with you, to ask for what I want, and to create a life that really means something, that is not full of suffering. And that's what's important to me. And that path, that work is so deeply fulfilling because I see how it's changed my life. I've seen how it's changed so many clients' lives, and I love it. I am endlessly fascinated by it, and I just love it.
I think it's something that most people fear, having those conversations around power, privilege, all the things we've been discussing, because we feel like it's just going to create a lot of pain, it's going to create a lot of suffering. But what I hear you saying, and something I also believe, is that through that experience of mining that discomfort, it ends up creating a lot of space for joy, a lot of space for pleasure. And we kind of have to go through the discomfort, go through the darkness in order to access the brightness on the other side.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said, Kay, because the pain is part of it, and the pain is beautiful. We have this cultural aversion to pain, and so we ignore it, we shove it aside, we give ourselves time limits to feeling grief or shame. But those can be such great teachers and such
Or
beautiful models.
I know the fear I was taught growing up, at least by my mother, was if you give in to feeling those things, then they will swallow you. If you venture into the darkness, you'll be in the dark forever. So let's just shove it aside and pretend it's not there, and just focus on being happy. And
Hmm.
how that can work for a short period of time, but generally not long term.
Hmm. Yeah, generally not long term. And I also think it's important to name that it's possible to go too deep. I've certainly done that a lot in my life, and that I have to really be aware of how I regulate my body, of what I need to take care of myself if I'm going to go deep into grief, which I love doing. And I think it's so important to be in that kind of awe-inspiring vibration of grief. But it's also can be really easy to sink too far in, and that can be a really challenging hole to climb out of. And so having the tools to be able to hold it, to hold the discomfort, which I think as a society we are remarkably ill-equipped with. And that's not any of our faults. It's we've whatever you believe in terms of why we're here. What I believe, I chose to come into this body at this time, and I get to work through some of those challenges.
And I think one of the benefits of doing this work too, from a spiritual perspective, they often say that when you do your own healing work, you heal the generations back before you as well. And, take it or leave that as an idea, but this idea of when we do our own work to heal and grow, it's not just a benefit to us, but it's a benefit to, you can say, the community around us, our family and friends, our lineage, if you want to think of it that way. That diving into the discomfort and becoming whole and healed and healthy is not a selfish act. It's of benefit to everyone.
Yeah, and that is, to me, when I feel that, when I hear you say that, that to me is really joyful, is really fulfilling.
Yeah. It's something I learned or was taught very early on in my spiritual journey. Is so often people want to improve the world by going out and fixing other people, going out and doing things externally. And we, of course, can create objective positive change, right? Like go plant some trees. That is objectively a beautiful thing to do for the planet. Provided they're not like some horribly inappropriate trees that are going to like take over and kill all the indigenous plants. But one of the best things we can do is to come from a place of being in a really good state ourselves, being with genuine compassion, fullness, love, peace, and that when we come from fullness, the ripples that we send out there are much more beneficial than coming from desperation or seeking approval or emptiness. So the work starts within.
Yeah, always.
Adam, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. I love the work you're doing. I love how you're asking these big and often uncomfortable existential questions and trying to bring it home into our bodies and into our lives. I think it's such beautiful and important work. I hope people that watch this channel engage with what I do, reach out and work with you. You've got workshops coming up and throughout the year. Is there anything you would recommend people check out? I know your website is a good resource, which I will drop in the comments below, but I believe it's adamb.com. Is that right?
AdamB.com, where you can find more information about one-on-one work. And just to be clear, the way we approach these big questions is by coming into the body and simply asking each other, you know, how do you want to be touched? How do you want me to touch you? How do you want to touch me? Those simple questions tend to bring up all of these challenges and obstacles that we've talked about today in such a myriad of ways. And yeah, I have one-on-one work, weekend workshops, retreats coming up, so you can sign up for my email list there and get more information, set up a consultation, and figure out next steps.
I love it. You're also bringing to mind for me, when I moved to Los Angeles, I joined a group called Sex Positive LA, and in their orientation, they had us line up and face each other and ask for what we wanted, like ask for a hand massage, and to practice both saying no and also practice negotiating, saying, I wouldn't like a hand massage, but I would love a hug. Are you willing to do that? And it was the first time in my life I ever had somebody in physical form have us practice saying no with touch or negotiating touch, and just what a powerful experience that was. That years later, now 6 years later, it still resonates with me as being meaningful. So I so appreciate the type of work you're doing and the people you're helping, the lives you're changing. And as I said, I've had a few of my own clients work with Adam, and I've just raved and said that it's been really powerful and beautiful work. So hearty endorsement from them. Thank you so much, Adam. And if at some point you're up for it to have another conversation out here, I would absolutely love it.
I hope so, Kay. This has been my pleasure, and thank you for the invitation.
Of course. Well, please check him out, adamb.com. Also, if you aren't already, please do like and subscribe this video and this channel. My new book, I Dreamt to Flight, is out, so please check that out. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time.